The North American P-51 Mustang is celebrated as one of the most iconic fighter aircraft in aviation history. Sleek, fast, and deadly, it became a symbol of Allied air dominance during the final stages of World War II. For the young pilots who flew it in fierce dogfights, the Mustang was not just a machine, it was a guardian in the skies. However, the journey of this legendary aircraft was far from straightforward. Its success was not the result of careful military planning, but rather a combination of corporate ambition, unexpected innovations, and sheer luck. Interestingly, the U.S. Army Air Corps initially showed little interest in the aircraft. Even the British, who first acquired it, were not fully satisfied with its early performance. Before the United States formally entered the war, the British Purchasing Commission was seeking to strengthen its air force by sourcing modern American-built aircraft. Among their orders were Curtiss fighters powered by the Allison engine, known as the P-40 Tomahawk. However, Curtiss-Wright, the manufacturer, lacked the production capacity to fulfill all British orders. As an alternative, they proposed that North American Aviation produce the P-40 under license. But James Dutch Kindleberger, the ambitious president of North America, was not content with simply building another company's design. Instead, he boldly offered to create an entirely new fighter aircraft, one that would use the same Allison engine as the P-40, but feature superior aerodynamics and advanced production techniques. Intrigued by this confidence, the British agreed and requested a preliminary design. North American promised to deliver not only a design, but also a working prototype in just 4 months. To speed up development, they obtained design data from Curtiss, cutting months of research time. Confident in their plan, they assured the British that mass production could start by January 1941. With an expected output of 50 aircraft per month, the British named the new plane the Mustang, likely inspired by the wild horses of the American West, although the exact reason remains a mystery. To meet production deadlines, North American made a critical design compromise. They opted for a non-turbocharged version of the Allison engine, sacrificing high-altitude performance. This decision would initially limit the aircraft's effectiveness. When the first Mustangs reached England, Royal Air Force test pilots were impressed by its speed and maneuverability at low altitudes. But at altitudes above 15,000 feet, the Allison engine lost power dramatically. This made the aircraft unsuitable for high-altitude dogfights, where most aerial battles occurred. As a result, the RAF decided not to use it as a frontline fighter. Instead of discarding the plane, the British reassigned it to their Army Cooperation Command for reconnaissance and ground support missions. Equipped with cameras, the Mustang replaced the outdated Westland Lysander, proving itself valuable in reconnaissance roles. Its first combat mission came during the Au Fait de Dieppe raid in August 1942, where it provided critical intelligence despite heavy losses. Meanwhile, after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States ramped up its military operations. A batch of Mustangs originally meant for the British was redirected to the U.S. Army Air Forces. Like the RF, the Americans initially viewed the aircraft as more suited for reconnaissance than for air combat. However, as the war progressed, they began exploring alternative uses for the Mustang. The U.S. Army modified some Mustangs for dive bombing missions, creating the A-36 variant. Engineers added dive brakes for better control and hardpoints capable of carrying bombs. Deployed to North Africa in early 1943, these A-36s performed admirably in ground attack roles. Still, the Army realized that dive bombing was not as effective as hoped and eventually phased out the practice. Despite its unconventional start, the Mustang's story was far from over. RAF test pilots recognized that if fitted with a more powerful engine, the aircraft could become a game. Their eyes were on the turbocharged Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, renowned for its high-altitude performance. At the time, all available Merlin engines were reserved for Spitfire production, delaying any chance of immediate integration. This realization marked a turning point in the Mustangs. An aircraft initially dismissed as unfit for dogfights was now on the verge of becoming one of the most formidable fighters of the war. In an effort to increase Merlin engine production, Rolls-Royce collaborated with the Packard Motor Company in the United States, granting them a license to manufacture the engines locally. Packard, known for its luxury cars, had experience in aviation engineering from its work on the Liberty engine during World War I. This partnership would soon transform the Mustang's destiny. The first British Mustang fitted with a Merlin engine took to the skies in October 1942. Just a month later, a U.S. Army Mustang equipped with a Packard-built Merlin completed its maiden flight, demonstrating outstanding performance. The transformation was dramatic. The new engine gave the Mustang exceptional high-altitude capabilities and extended operational range, making it a perfect candidate for long-range escort missions. Comparative tests with the Spitfire showed that while both aircraft were formidable, the Mustang had a key advantage: its extended range. This feature was crucial at a time when U.S. bombers were suffering devastating losses during deep penetration raids into Germany. The Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress and consolidated B-2 for Liberator, despite their heavy defensive armament, could not defend themselves against relentless Luftwaffe attacks once they flew beyond the range of their escorts. Throughout 1942 and much of 1943, the primary escort fighters, the British Spitfire, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning, and the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, had limitations. The P-38 had range but was scarce in Europe. The P-47 consumed too much fuel, and the Spitfire lacked the endurance for long missions. This left bombers vulnerable during the most dangerous parts of their flights. By late 19th, U.S. military strategists urgently needed a fighter that could accompany bombers all the way to their targets and back. The upgraded P-51 Mustang, now powered by the Merlin engine, was the perfect solution. Its range, speed, and agility allowed it to protect bombers deep inside enemy territory, while also engaging Luftwaffe fighters on equal terms. Initially, the new P-51B Mustangs were assigned to the 9th Air Force for tactical support missions. However, the heavy losses experienced by the 8th Air Force during bombing raids forced a strategic rethink. The Mustang was reassigned as a long-range escort fighter. Lieutenant Colonel Donald Blakesley, an experienced fighter ace, was among the first to evaluate the new aircraft. Having flown both the Spitfire and P-47, he quickly realized that the Mustang was superior for the escort role. Engineers further enhanced its capabilities by adding an internal fuselage fuel tank and external drop tanks, extending its range even more. By the winter of 1943, the Mustang was ready to change the air war over Europe. The Luftwaffe, already strained by losses and fuel shortages, now faced an aircraft that could outfly and outfight them at every altitude. The P-51's arrival came at a critical moment. The Allies were preparing for the monumental invasion of Western Europe, and air superiority was essential. The Mustang would soon prove itself not just as an escort fighter, but as a true game-changer in the skies over Germany. As 1944 began, the Mustang's role expanded rapidly. The 8th Air Force started deploying P-51s on deep escort missions, protecting bombers all the way to Berlin and back. Their presence drastically reduced bomber losses and shifted the balance of power in the skies. American fighter tactics also evolved. Instead of simply staying close to the bombers, Mustang pilots were now authorized to aggressively hunt down German fighters, wherever they were found, even over their own airfields. This offensive approach crippled the Luftwaffe, destroying aircraft on the ground before they could take off. The Mustang's combination of range, firepower, and agility allowed pilots to dominate and it quickly earned a fearsome reputation among German pilots, who found themselves outmatched by the new Allied fighter. While the Luftwaffe had once controlled the skies of Europe, by mid-1944, their power was broken. The Mustang's relentless assaults, combined with Allied bombing of fuel refineries and transportation networks, left German air defenses in ruins. The P-51 was not just an escort. It became a symbol of Allied air superiority. Its presence ensured that bombers could strike targets deep in Germany without suffering unsustainable losses. As the Allies prepared for D-Day, the Mustang played a vital role in clearing the skies and destroying enemy infrastructure. Even elite Luftwaffe units could not stop the tide. The Mustang hunted German aircraft relentlessly, ensuring that when the invasion came, the skies over Normandy belonged to the Allies. The impact of the P-51 Mustang was undeniable. It had evolved from an underestimated reconnaissance plane into the ultimate long-range fighter of World War II. As Allied forces pushed into France after D-Day, the P-51 Mustang didn't just escort bombers, it became the engine of air domination across Europe. From Normandy's skies to the heart of Germany, it proved indispensable. By late 1944, Mustang-equipped fighter groups such as the 357th and 56th had achieved staggering results. The 357th secured over 600 aerial victories, while the 56th earned fame as the top American fighter group, scoring over 674 air kills. The Mustang's exceptional fuel efficiency, agility, and armament made such dominance possible, a weapon unmatched in the European theater. European skies were now ruled by Allied fighters. German bomber formations, once protected by Luftwaffe escorts, were left vulnerable. Dogfights shifted from desperate survival to full Allied control. P-51s not only invited these, Engagements, they hunted them. Pilots patrolled enemy airfields, strafing planes on the ground and disrupting fighter operations before takeoff. Meanwhile, German fuel production crumbled under Allied strategic bombing, oil shortages, grounded Luftwaffe aircraft, and rail lines and refineries lay in ruin. The Mustang's arrival coincided with these crippling setbacks, accelerating Germany's collapse. The P-51 was not just a fighter, it was a force multiplier. It allowed Allied bombers to strike with impunity deep into Germany. Factories, ball bearing plants, and oil depots were targets now reachable and killable without fear. By 19, fast-flying Mustang squadrons escorted B-17s and B-24s all the way to Berlin. Mustang pilots developed aggressive tactics. The Asterisk fighter suite. Asterisk, instead of flying close to bombers, units flew ahead of formations to engage enemies preemptively. Missionary pilots like Lieutenant Colonel Doane, Blakesley, and John C. Meyer became legend. Their fearless fighter-led tactics unleashed a wave of air superiority and attrition against the Luftwaffe. The Mustang's impact extended beyond dogfighting. It reduced bomber losses dramatically. In early 1944, bomber formations suffered near catastrophic losses over Germany. By late 1944 and early 1945, with Mustangs at their side, losses plunged. Allied strategic bombing became more effective and sustainable than ever. Though the war still demanded sacrifices, Mustang pilots suffered fewer casualties thanks to the airplane's improved survivability and performance. Friendly fire incidents and mid-air collisions sometimes occurred in crowded bomber escort missions. But training and tactics quickly evolved to mitigate risks. By April 1945, Mustang units were not just escorting, they were attacking bridges, trains, convoys, and enemy infrastructure, hundreds of miles behind the front line. Their missions disrupted German logistics, aiding advancing ground troops. P-51 strafed supply columns and rail yards, cutting off enemy reinforcements and accelerating retreats. The stories of Mustang aces remain legendary. Chuck Yeager, flying P-51Bs and C escort his first aerial victories in Mustang squadrons. Clarence Bud Anderson, after downing German fighters, inspired future generations. Their experiences symbolize what the Mustang represented: speed, precision, unwavering dominance, and innovation folded into one sleek aircraft. Germany's response was futile. They attempted to develop high-performance interceptors like the Me-262 jet and the advanced Heinkel prototypes, but disruptions from bombing, fuel shortages, and accelerated Allied advances prevented them from fielding sufficient numbers in time. As Europe collapsed, the P-51 Mustang stood ready. By V-Day, over 15,000 Mustangs had been built. They remained in U.S. and Allied service into the 1950s, and even saw action in the Korean War. Looking back, historians and veterans alike view the Mustang as game-changing. Unlike other aircraft, its single greatest attribute wasn't speed, maneuverability, or firepower, it was range. The Mustang's ability to escort bombers the entire way to targets and back transformed strategic bombing into a credible war-winning tool. Its legacy stretches beyond combat. After World War II, surplus Mustangs were sold to Allied air forces, used as racers, civilian aircraft, and endurance contenders. Enthusiasts still restore Mustangs today. Their roaring Merlin engines, a living echo of history. The P-51 Mustang, S transformation from an underestimated reconnaissance plane to the aviator, S-Stream, an Allied war-winning as a testament to adaptability and innovation in wartime. It reshaped air combat, preserved bomber crews, and broke German air dominance. In the words of a veteran pilot, "We felt invincible in that Mustang." And in history, it remains the aircraft that helped crush an empire one Mustang at a time.